Welcome in. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful evening. This is the Extra Point Podcast. My name's Gus. That's Will. That's Cody. How are y'all doing tonight, fellas?
What is up, man? I am excited for this episode, doing some win totals tonight. I've been looking forward to getting to this point of the off season. I mean, we don't really like to say that, but I'm really excited about getting to this, man, and excited about this episode.
Extra point. Glad y'all brought me back, man. Ready to talk some Pac-12, some West Coast, see what everybody's feeling.
Yes, sir. And just before we jump into this, man, hit a subscribe on that YouTube. You can watch us over there too. Share the stream on Facebook. If you aren't listening to us right now, you can catch us the next day on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Will's killing it over on a TikTok and Instagram game too. Man, I am excited about tonight's episode, kind of like y'all were talking about. We're talking Pac-12. I think this is going to be the most exciting conference to watch this season. We're going to be tired because we're going to be staying up late watching all of these Pac-12 games because, I mean, there's a bunch of teams that are going to be contending for the playoff, probably about 4, maybe 5 that are going to be playing in this conference this fall.
I know we live in SEC country and, we live in the middle of dog country.
The dog.
Yeah. But, man, dude, the Pac-12 has really improved. Guys, watch the Pac-12 this year. They're going to be fun to watch. I hope ESPN kind of does what they did last year. Let the East Coast see them a little more. Have their games played, maybe around 7:30ish or so. Because like Gus kind of said, this is a top-heavy conference, but those top teams are going to be fun to watch, man. And this is first time in a while that the Pac-12 has been, this much fun, man. And I'm glad that they're kind of getting to being more competitive and they have teams that can compete with about anybody.
I mean, this is the funnest that the Pac-12 is going to be to watch since when?
Dude, probably first time that we've had this many teams in the Pac-12 since I've been watching college football. They've always had 2 or 3, but they've never really – it's been a while since they've had somebody that could compete with the big boys,
Yeah,
and I think they kind of got that. I don't know if some of them can compete with Georgia or nothing, but man, they can. A lot of them could compete in the Big Ten, the SEC, most of the SEC teams. But man, they're definitely exciting for sure.
Cody, tell us why you're excited to watch the Pac-12 this year.
Y'all hit on a lot of it. I think it's just the amount of talent that's over there now, and kind of some of the big stars that we're getting, with Lincoln Riley being at USC and,
Yes.
Oregon's always going to be Oregon, but now you got, Colorado. Everybody's kind of looking at Colorado, and just the quarterbacks over there, man, is what I'm excited for. The quarterback play looks like it could be, from top to bottom, maybe the best in the conference of any conference. So that's going to be exciting to watch.
I think they will have the best quarterback play out of all of the conferences just because they're bringing so many quarterbacks back.
Yeah, you got 3 guys that can really compete for the Heisman too. So.
You're right, man. And
their conference has the best quarterbacks, and it's not even close. I mean, overall, from top to bottom. I mean, if you look at it,
no doubt.
I mean, it's not even close to me.
And I mean, half of the conference has a win total of 8.5 or higher. I don't think there's any other conference that's like that. I mean,
it's wide open, dude.
Yeah. I mean, so we can just start with the first team, the conference favorite. It's gotta be USC. And they open up at 9.5. Some places you can get it at 10, but we're just going with 9.5 because that makes it just a little bit more difficult. Man, kind of looking at their schedule here, they open up with a pretty easy slate. I mean, they open up with San Jose State, win. Then they go to Nevada, win. Stanford, win. Off week, they're at Arizona State, should be a win. At Colorado, should be a win. Arizona at home should be a win. So the first half of their schedule, they should be 6-0. Not really that much time. Shouldn't spend that much time on that. But the back half of this schedule, y'all, it is ridiculous, as you can see on the screen. They're going to Notre Dame, Utah at home, at Cal, Washington at home, at Oregon, UCLA at home. What do y'all think is going to happen for USC this year, man? Because 9.5 with this schedule, it kind of feels like the right number.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Obviously, you kind of mentioned it. USC is going to be the favorite probably for everybody going into this year, mainly because they brought back the Heisman Trophy winner and Caleb Williams.
And they're loaded. They're
dude.
loaded.
They brought in a transfer, Darian Singer from Arizona. He was second in receiving in the Pac-12 last year. He's going to be huge for them. My biggest question mark for them is their defense.
Right.
And that's pretty much going to be this. We're going to talk about the same thing for almost every team, pretty much, is their defense. Can they find depth, and can their defensive line improve? Right. And I see that game October 21st. I have it circled to Utah. Can they get over that Utah slump? I think they do it this year. I got them going over, but they will slip up once, maybe twice in that little games right there, that second half of their schedule. I think it's probably once, but I'm gonna hit the over at 10-2 or 11-1.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to take the over too. The Trojans don't lack much on offense. Obviously, they get Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina, their best running back. You get Kyle Ford from UCLA. That's one of their best receivers. You get Michael Tarquin from UF. That was one of our best linemen as a Florida fan. Offense, just like you spoke on, is nothing that we worry about with any of these teams. I do think, with every single one of these teams, we talked about how dominant those quarterbacks are and how good the quarterback play is going to be and how we want to watch quarterbacks, this, that, and the other. It's going to matter on how healthy they stay. Which quarterback can stay healthy. Obviously, they're going to lean on Caleb Williams to be that guy. As long as he stays healthy, I think they can definitely hit 10-2. The problem, like you said, is which team's going to show up on defense, because you can't outscore everybody. So Alex Grinch, he goes into this season knowing that he's kind of on a hot seat. I mean, he gave up almost 30 last year. He's got some big time guys coming back. I mean, he's got 8 starters coming back, and then he got Bear Alexander from UGA, and then he got Fegans from Bama, which is a good DB. So I think they will be improved, and I think they'll be extremely good. I do think I agree with you, Will, that they beat Utah. I just don't know if they're my Pac-12 champ, but they will be really good.
They're not mine.
They might not be mine either. I haven't quite made up my mind, but I'm going over with USC as well, kind of for all the same reasons that y'all said. I do think they got more depth in the defensive front seven, specifically on the defensive line in the portal. I mean, they're probably their most talented guy, of course. You kind of spoke on him, Cody, Bear Alexander from Georgia, but can he be the guy? Like, can he be like their premier guy? Can he be a 3-down guy? Does he have to come out? Does he have to rotate often? That's just something that we'll have to see. But I have USC going over too.
Yeah, and speaking on Bear, just real quick, they don't make them type of guys out there out west. He didn't lack talent with UGA. It was more kind of toxic in the locker room type when you talk to guys. So as long as he can keep his head on straight, I think he will be a good DL for him. So we'll see.
Moving up the West Coast, we're gonna go to Oregon next. They have a win total of 9.5, over under 9.5. Man, I think this could be a really good team next season, but they don't have the easiest of schedules. Of course, they open with Portland State, at Texas Tech, week 2. That's a tough game. Then it kind of gets a little bit easier with Hawaii, Colorado at Stanford. Then they kind of get into the meat of it at Washington State at home, at Utah, Cal, USC, at Arizona State, and closing the season out with Oregon State in the Civil War. Cody, what do you think of the Ducks going into 23?
I think if you're looking at a team, man, I've got two that I'm really high on, and Oregon's one of them. I'm a believer in Bo Nix. I know a lot of people around here may not be, and maybe some laugh at him, but I think he is a really serviceable quarterback.
Very much so.
The biggest thing with me for them is, can they replace their O-line because they lost 4 starters? I know Bo's mobile, so that's not always, something to look at, but it is, when you talk football, you talk the line. So I do worry with that. They got a tight end from Ole Miss and Casey Kelly. They got Bryant Jr. from USC. Like, they've got talent offensively. So I just wonder, how that line holds up. And then on the defense, they gave up 27.4 last year. How can they improve there? They lost a really stud linebacker and a really good corner, and Noah Sewell and Christian Gonzalez. So I know those guys are going to be missed. But when you talk in all these offensive teams, there's not too many defensive-minded coaches that are around, and they actually have one. So I think that will play to their advantage. Schedule is tough, but I think, we kind of mentioned all these teams are going to be kind of fighting each other, and it's going to be a matter of who can show up, whether it be at home or on the road. And I would like to think Bo Nix has enough experience to get you where you want to go,
I think they have to defend Autzit Stadium and then split the games on the road at Utah and at Washington. And if they can split those 2 games, then I think they could go over as well at 9.5. So I could see them going 10-2, and I think their defense, specifically their front 7, kind of like you were touching on, someone's got to show up and play on the defensive side of the ball, and I think it's going to be Oregon. Will, I kind of know you're high on Oregon this year too.
Yeah, I drafted Bo Nix in our QB draft earlier a few weeks ago, man.
Stolen.
Let me say this. Dan Lanning has the blueprint of how to have a really great defense.
Yes.
He started out as his career at Alabama, went to Georgia, kind of helped them win their first national championship there as the defensive coordinator. So he has the blueprint. He knows how to get good defenses. Man, dude, they got to get better on third down. They were 123rd in the nation last year on third down defense.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's terrible, right? So if their front 7, Gus, you mentioned them, can get better, get to these quarterbacks, get pressure on them, and get off the field on third down, man, this team could be really good. I agree with you, Gus. If they can split those 2, Utah is a tough team to play at home, but Washington's one of their biggest rivals at Washington. These 2 teams do not like each other at all. Huge rivals. It's such a tough environment up there, man. The way Washington has their stadium built, the sound just stays in the stadium. It doesn't leave.
It's because they have those awnings up over, and it just holds everything in, and it just reverberates. Kind of illegal, but I mean, you have to do it because it rains so much up there.
It works, man. But Bo Nix, the offense, I'm not really worried about them. I know the offensive line kind of worries me, replacing 4 starters, but man, Bo Nix has so much experience, man. He came back this year because he says he loves college football so much.
And I don't blame him.
Yeah. He said the NFL can wait another year. So I'm going over right here. Team will be in the Pac-12 championship game November 1st that night. I think this team can do some big things.
And also, don't forget, speaking on Oregon, typically USC and Oregon are kind of high up on the recruiting ranks when it comes to Pac-12. And with UCLA and USC leaving, Dan Lanning's already a good recruiter. So if he can keep them guys coming in, he can really keep that program doing well. And, you'd spoke on the blueprint. So he's got everything he needs, I feel like, and this would be a great year to kind of prove it. I know
They
UGA
finished.
fans have that game in their mind, but they're a lot better than they played against the best team
Yeah,
in
they
college football.
they finished top 10 in recruiting this past cycle. So
I think
if
they
they can keep,
finished. I think they finished
if,
ninth.
yeah, if they can keep that momentum up, man, and they can like kind of steal these SEC players in the portal, dude, man, they're going to be a really good team. And if they can find them a replacement for Bo Nix after this year, dude, they're going. I mean, they will go in the right direction.
Yep. And Will, kind of jumping up to a team that you mentioned just a second ago, Washington Huskies. They are also at 9.5. Man, these top three teams, it's so tough to kind of be able to discern like who's going over and who's going under. But I picked Michael Penix for a reason because I think Washington's going over. They have a very cush start to the schedule. They have they have um they have Boise State at home, Tulsa at home. They're at Michigan State. That should be a dub. They got Cal at home. They're at Arizona. Then they kind of get into the meat. That game, Oregon at home, is crucial. Arizona State at Stanford, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, and then the Apple Cup at home against Washington State. That last 4 games is brutal. Absolutely brutal. What do y'all think about Washington?
Um, I like them. I know I don't like them as much as you guys, but I like them a lot. I think they're going to be really good this year. Again, this is just one of those teams. Their offense is going to be really good. Can they play some defense? And they really don't have to play any defense until the October
Probably
14th game
Oregon.
against Oregon. Yeah. So they don't need the defense to show up until they play Oregon. I got this team going over. I think you got the Heisman Trophy contender, Michael Penix. They brought back 2 really good receivers that have 1,000 yards last year. And you just don't see that much. 2 receivers to have 1,000 yards.
Almost 3.
Yeah,
Almost
almost 3.
3.
Man, they're going to go over, but barely.
Barely.
Over, but barely.
So you have them at 10-2. Cody, I know you're high on the Huskies like me. What do you got?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I am high on them. Michael Penix is a straight up stud, dude. He's really good. They did lose 3 interior O lines, so I wonder about that. But and I hate to say this, out of the last 3 we've talked about, this is the one that I kind of worry most about the defense, because I think UCLA has some guys that they can, really lean on. I think Oregon's probably got the best defense in the Pac-12, and then you've got Washington, who is dynamic offensively, but I just don't trust their defense. But I think the schedule lines up fairly good for them to take the over, and I may be drinking too much of the Kool-Aid, but I think when you have Michael Penix, you can do a lot. So. It's just one of those things. Like, they got a few games to kind of figure it out. Hopefully they can. I'd like to see them go really far, man. I'd like to see them do something, shake it up some. And they allowed 29.1 last year in Pac-12 games, so that's going to have to get better. I mean, you can't give up 30 and expect to win. So they got a couple in the portal. They got the Oklahoma State transfer, Muhammad at corner. He's really good. I worry about the defense, but I will go over.
I mean, so we already know that the Oregon game, the USC game, the Utah game, and the Oregon State game, those are kind of the must wins. What game on here do you think could be kind of like a slip up game?
I think for me, it's late. I think it's the Washington State, which is
Mm-hmm.
weird to say, but it's just one of those games that I feel like, they're already going to be kind of beat up going through that stretch.
Yeah.
And, kind of where are they going to be at? Or are they kind of out of the playoff shot? Like, it's just going to be a weird game, and Washington State could give them some trouble if they're not, if they don't have their heads right.
I think it's at Oregon State.
Yeah.
Going up to Oregon State, man, is starting to turn into a little fun place to play. Um, I just think that late in the year, you're coming off Utah, USC, and Utah, and you could probably maybe overlook them a little bit,
Mhm.
thinking, man, especially if you win one of those games, you could maybe overlook them a little bit. I think that Oregon State game is a little tricky, and it's late in the year, man. You just got to be careful for those away games like that.
Yeah.
I feel like Gus's game may be a little earlier in the season, though.
Oh, Cody, you already know the one that I'm probably looking at.
I didn't pick them just because of that.
You know that I think it's at Arizona. I think it's at Arizona just because whenever you look at Washington last season, they did kind of struggle on the road. They lost at Arizona State, I think, last season, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, they're heading back
Oof.
down to Arizona. I
Sure,
mean,
Heisman Trophy winner.
he isn't my Heisman Trophy winner, but he was my first overall pick. But I mean, just going into Arizona, it'll probably be a night game. It isn't the week before you play Oregon, it's the game before they play Oregon, their first real big true test of the season. So they might kind of be sleeping on Arizona. They might be looking ahead to Oregon. And I don't necessarily 100% trust them on the road. So I think if they slip up anywhere with a game that they should win, it's probably going to be at Arizona. Man, moving on. A
Ooh.
team that has shocked people the past 2 seasons just because the way they started was so poor, but then they turn it on at the end of the season. The back-to-back Pac-12 champions, the Utah Utes, we saw them open the season in 2021. I mean, in 2022, we saw them open at Florida. Their over-under for this season, though, 23, is 8.5 wins. Will, you're high on the Utes. Tell me about them.
Yeah, man, this is probably another team that you can say that knows how to play defense in the Pac-12. Not a lot of them do, but this is one of them. They brought back a lot of guys. They feel really good about their defense, returning majority of their starters. I think their biggest question mark is Cam Rising, right? He tore his ACL in the Rose Bowl game. He's about 2/3 of the way through with his rehab. So they feel really good about him coming back for that Florida game. But if he can't, maybe doesn't make it back, maybe tweak something in camp, they feel really good about Brandon Rhodes, right? So this will be a heavy run offense this year, just like last year.
Yeah.
They feel really good about it. So obviously this offense is going to be quarterback friendly. They have a kid I've told y'all about. His name's Nick Johnson. He's a dual threat, and he has some speed, man. He runs a 100-meter in about 10.4 seconds.
That's fast for a QB.
Yes, that is. If he gets around the corner, he's gone. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a package, some type of package where he comes in the game and they try to run him and they try to get him into space. I feel really good about Utah. Their schedule is kind of tough
It's
in the
very
second
tough.
in the second half of the year. Man, they play a lot of Power 5 teams this year.
Tons.
Unfortunately, I think they might beat my Gators to start the year, but I got them going over, but barely. 9-3, I think, is what they're probably going to finish. I think USC beats them. UCLA is going to be tough for them. At Washington is probably going to be the game that gets them to that third loss.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 9-3, 10-2 is what I'm looking at for them. I'm going to go over. I don't know if they're going to be in the Pac-12 championship again this year or not. But again, their defense can take them there. And if Cam Rising plays, man, they could definitely make it back.
Man, I really know we have a big differing of opinions on this. Just because of schedule, I'm going Utes under 8.5 because just looking at the start of the schedule, Florida, then they are at Baylor, then they got Weber State, UCLA at home, at Oregon State, then they have an off week. They could start 1-4. It is not out of the realm of possibility for them to start 1-4.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dude, just them playing at home though, they're just really strong at home. It's just hard. They just don't lose there.
they are 19-0 at home in the past 3 seasons. So
Yeah, man.
just ridiculous stuff. And then they have to play at USC. They get Oregon at home. Then they're at Washington. So those are just some of the big games. But I mean, this schedule is just so tough. Cody, are you over or are you under 8.5 for Utah?
So I'm going to take the under with Utah, and I want to say I was higher on them last year. I wasn't one of those that was kind of overlooking them. I did actually bet on Utah to beat USC. This year, I just don't feel as good about them, man. You spoke on the schedule. Their hardest games are away. They are really good at home, but they're also really poor starting out. I mean,
Yes.
that's just a known fact. The last few years, they just don't start good. So I'd like to have a little faith in the Gators and think that they may run into some trouble there. But you spoke on those. The first two games are tough as it is when you think that you don't even have your star quarterback with. How's his ACL doing? And he's kind of more mobile. He's not the fastest dude in the world, but he is one of the mobile guys. So
Yes.
I think that's going to hurt him a lot. And you spoke on the defense, Will. They got 8 guys coming back. It's going to be between them and Oregon who's got the best defense in the Pac-12. Morgan Scaley's not. I mean, he's not. Staying up at night wondering how he's going to deal with those defensive guys. So I know they lost a corner in Clark Phillips, a third, and a safety in RJ Hubert. That those 2 guys won't be easy to replace. But when you got 8 guys coming back, I think you don't worry too much defensive wise. But because they're going to be kind of so one dimensional, I mean, you're pretty much running the ball, right? They're only going to run the ball. I think that
They
hurts you a
don't
little
have
bit.
a lot on the perimeter. They really don't. They're probably their best offensive player besides Cam Rising. Dalton Kincaid got drafted last year, and then they got Brant Keithy coming back. But besides him, I mean, that's really their only weapon out wide. So
Well,
kind of having Cam Rising coming off of that ACL, him not being able to run as
they got
well. I mean,
they got a kid named Devin Bailey that's coming back. He had a really good year. His first 5 games were really good. Then he kind of got hurt. I mean, he had over 100 yards against Florida last year. So the wide receiver group is definitely the weakest part of their offense. So it'll be interesting to see how they can get the throwing game, the passing game involved and develop it.
Well, and we talked about it, Will. We've talked about it before, just kind of, getting ourselves ready for that game is like if we're on the Florida sideline, you're manning up and just begging them to beat you throwing I feel like that's what's going to hurt them is you've got some of these teams in the Pac-12 that can light you up, and if you can't hang with them, the defense is good and hopefully you can slow them down. But let's be honest, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, they're going to get there no matter how good the defense is. So I just think with them being so one-sided, I'm going to go under with them, and I'll take my chances.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate having to go under on the back-to-back champs, but you do what you got to do. And this was a team I was surprised had a win total of 8.5. The Beavers. I am surprised that Oregon State had a win total of 8.5. Man, we have a little ad pop up. Man, but this is tough. That they were a surprise team last season. They had one of their best years overall, 10-3. If you count the bowl win over Florida, we aren't going to spend too much time on that.
We don't count that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is a pretty tough schedule. They do dodge USC, but they get the other top dogs in the Pac 12. And just because they had so much success last year, I think they'll kind of come back down to earth this season. Give me the under on Oregon State just because there's uncertainty in the QB room too. They brought DJ in from Clemson. They have freshman Aiden Childs, and they don't know who the QB is coming out of spring. So, man, give me the under on the Beavs.
Man, I like Jonathan Smith as the head coach. I think he's done a
Yes.
great job with them. He's made Oregon State a little bit relevant, like
Yeah.
where people are kind of talking about them. Gus, I'm with you, man. I'm with the under right here. I'm just not on the hype train. Me and Cody have talked about this. Somehow Florida gets people more hype than they deserve when you can beat us somehow. So I apologize to
Everybody
everybody for
hates us.
that.
That's why.
Yeah. But I'm going under. I think the schedule's a little too tough. Playing, Utah, Washington, Oregon. I think they'll slip up in a few other spots. So I'm the under on the Beavs.
So for me, first off, okay, some of the things I say is not like because they beat the crap out of the Gators in a bowl game that didn't matter. I'd like to think DJU is going to be a good quarterback for them. I do think he comes out and wins the job. I got high hopes for him. I hope he, kind of takes that clean slate and does good with his team, and finds his own path, makes a new name for himself. But the team in general, I don't like it enough. They lost some guys, Tijon Lindsey, Trayshawn Harrison, what was there, Luke Musgrave, the tight end they had. All of them guys went to the NFL. So, that's a lot of talent on the offensive side you're losing. They lost a tight end in the portal. They got a tight end from Cal, Jermaine Terry. I worry with them, man. The defense is going to be improved. Trent Bray is doing a good job over there, but he lost their best linebacker, Omar Spates, to LSU. That's a stud there that they lost. And they got to replace 3 starters. They lost Wright and Grant. So with the names that they're losing, I think, especially for the common fan or the common watcher, the last game in your mind is always kind of fresh for you. And I think a lot of people think, they see that game and they like, oh, they killed that Florida team. And we're not going to talk on it. I'm not going to, ramble on it, but I think
Florida didn't want to be there.
Well, it's not just that. I think when you have a game like that where your numbers inflate so high when they aren't supposed to, I think it kind of throws your trajectory off when it comes to stats. And when you're looking at the next season, you only have last season to go off of. So I think that hurts it. And I say all that to say I just don't with the pieces they've lost and the teams that are out there other than them, I just don't trust them, man. I don't trust that team enough.
The only thing that they have going their way is 3 of their 4 biggest games are at home, with Utah, UCLA, and Washington all being in Corvallis. And then, of course, they go to Oregon to end the year for the Civil War. But
the schedule is not bad at all. I mean,
no, but do you kind of think that teams will kind of adjust to the way that they play? And kind of like we said with Utah, just kind of load the box and say like, hey, like we're going to force you to let DJU or freshman Childs beat us throwing the ball down the field and then just kind of pick your poison.
I think with them, man, Oregon State is one of those teams that you're going to see. They're going to beat somebody they're not supposed to, but they're going to lose to somebody they're not supposed to. That's just how these type of teams go, that it feels like. And, you spoke about loading the box and stuff. DJU is good, man. I'm kind of higher on him than others, but like if he can't get it done at Clemson, you can make a strong case to say, well, you definitely can't get it done at Oregon State. You know what I mean? Especially after losing the talent they did to the NFL. What do you think, Will?
I'm not a big DJU guy. I mean, I don't I mean, if you again, like you kind of just mentioned the Clemson deal, like I don't know if he's I just don't know if Clemson was the right fit for him. Maybe this is the right fit for him. Maybe their offense will help him out. Maybe it'll be kind of simplified for him.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll have a better year, but I kind of agree with you. Man, I wouldn't watch the end of last year and just assume that they're going to be just as good or better than. Um, Again, if Oregon's defense was this like just this much better, they would have lost that game. If
Yeah.
the full Florida team would have showed up, we probably would have beat them in the bowl game. So not a big believer in the Beavers. Think they will have an okay record, but I'm still under for them.
All right. That does not conclude the teams that have win totals of 8.5 or better. We have one more. That's just how stacked the top of this conference is. My dark horse contender, the UCLA Bruins. I'm excited about this team going into 2023. I think Chip Kelly has kind of been able to maneuver and manipulate the portal that is super beneficial to them because he's not a big recruiter. So he's really able to go and pick and choose guys out of the portal that he really likes. And that's what he's done the past couple years. And I think they're going over. I really, really do because they start with Coastal Carolina. They're at San Diego State, NC Central to start the season with the non-con. They should be 3-0. Then they have early season test week 4 at Utah. That's going to be a really fun game. Then, of course, they have the bye week, Washington State at Oregon State, at Stanford, Colorado, Arizona State. Pretty easy stretch right there. And then they end the season at USC and then Cal. They dodge Oregon and they dodge Washington. With this schedule, there's no reason in my eyes, with all the additions that they've added through the portal, that they shouldn't go 10-2. So I'm hammering. If I was a betting man, this would be one of my bets.
You say that's an easy stretch, but dude, they're going to be in the middle of a 7-game stretch.
Yeah.
7 games. I don't care what conference you're in. That is tough on your body. And you might be coming off of a super physical game, and you might be coming off like a game you probably struggled on a little bit, and you maybe come out with a win, and somebody might shock you like Arizona.
Yeah.
But I'm big on Chip Kelly and them too this year. Interested to see who they pick at quarterback. They do have a freshman in Dante Moore. If it was me, that's who I would pick. I would go with him. I think he's going to be a stud. He is a Chip Kelly quarterback. I mean, if Chip Kelly had to pick one out, that's what he would look like. That's what he would play like. One of their biggest question marks for me, though, the offense that kind of scares me a little bit is the offensive line. Mm-hmm. And when your offensive line are the biggest question marks, man, you might struggle a little bit. But their schedule does benefit them a lot. You mentioned they don't play Oregon or they don't play Washington, which is huge.
Yes.
They brought in a new defensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens. You know, last year they had a weird year on defense. Their defensive coordinator had to leave in the middle of the year, which was kind of weird. And they had to get like a defensive analyst to call the plays for them. So to have, you know, some familiarity with the defense this year, I think will help them out. I don't think they'll be like great or anything, but I think they'll be better. Their pass rush is probably going to be their biggest question mark. If they can get their defensive line going and they can cause some pressure with just those 4 guys, man, I could see this team going over. And I got them going over barely with 9 wins. Barely. 9 wins. UCLA will be improved from last year to this year. I like Chip Kelly a lot too.
I'm going to have to disagree with both of you on this one.
You're hitting the under?
I'm hitting the under hard on UCLA.
Who are they losing to? Well,
everybody. I'm just kidding.
They're going 0-12.
Again, that 7-game stretch is tough.
Yeah.
I don't care who you play.
Here's the thing for UCLA for me. It's not the schedule. You spoke on how easy the schedule is. That's not it. So But I have question marks everywhere, man. You talked on the quarterback, so we don't even know who the quarterback is. Yeah, Dante Moore's he's going to be a straight up guy you want. It's a household name. He's going to be really good. Is he ready? We don't know. They got that Kent State transfer, Colin Slee, and the junior Ethan Gabers. They're all kind of fighting for that spot. Who knows who comes out? So you got quarterback questions. You already mentioned the OL. They're wondering, how are we replacing these three guys? They get an OL from Colorado that was really good, but you still don't know, So there's questions on the offense. There's questions at the defense. You talked about DeAnton Lynn, the new coordinator. Is he going to be anything like Bill McGrovern? We don't know. I mean, it's a new DC. How are they going to call things? I worry with that. The secondary gave up 25 passing scores last year. So
that's a lot.
So you were talking on the DL, like the secondary is kind of rough too. So
your DL can help your secondary.
It can, and they got a guy from Oregon that Keanu Williams that he's pretty good, but they didn't replace the DBs good enough for me. I mean, they got a guy from Bowling Green that I'm not high on. So I worry with offense and defense with him. So it's really, I like Chip Kelly. I think he knows how to win, but when we're talking home and aways and who's playing what, let's not forget that they don't have a good home field advantage either. Like those fans barely come to the game.
They don't.
Yeah, it's like
so if they start struggling, that's why I say that. If they start struggling, man, it could be one of those kind of give up. Not how do they adapt to losing type deals? And I worry that Chip Kelly's not one that can kind of make you want to run through a wall. So with all that going on, that's the reason I take the under with him.
Well, man, I'll say this is one way they feel about it, dude. They feel really good about their skill positions, that this is like the best they've been at skill positions in a very long time.
Specifically wide receiver.
Yeah, specifically wide receiver. So,
but not your quarterback.
Well, I mean, they have a very good problem at quarterback that a lot of teams wish they had.
I mean, do we know how Dante Moore's going to play? I mean, he's a freshman.
We don't know exactly how he'll play, but I would rather have him than a bunch of other options that a bunch of other teams have. But you don't know just because he is a true freshman, and it all does kind of hinge on the quarterback play. It's like,
I mean, look at Cade Klubnik last year, dude. He was highly rated, and look how he looked. I mean, he didn't look like no top tier guy either, and he has all the talent.
But he had what a bunch of people would call an incompetent offensive coordinator in Streeter calling the plays, and I would not call Chip Kelly incompetent.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
So I mean, I am going over. Will's going over. Cody is going under. So that's kind of the upper echelon of the Pac-12. Now we're kind of getting down in the muck. We're getting down in the weeds. We're getting teams that are fighting tooth and nail to just make a bowl game. The next team we're breaking down, the Washington State Cougars. 6.5 is their over under for the 2023 season. It's kind of a weird schedule. They are at Colorado State to open the season. I don't know why, as a Power 5 team, you would go on the road to a G5 team to open the season, but that's just my opinion. Then they get Wisconsin at home. They beat Wisconsin last year, but I think Luke Fickell's squad's going to be ready to play. They get Northern Colorado, Oregon State at home off week. They're at UCLA, Arizona at home, at Oregon, at Arizona State, Stanford at home, Cal away, Colorado at home, and then they finish the season in the Apple Cup at Washington. This line is about perfect for Washington State. I kind of wish it was at 6 so I could just pick a side and it would push when they get 6. But I'm going under. This seems like a 6-6 team that plays in the Heineke Car Care Bowl 3 days after the new year. I'm going 6-6. They do have a dynamic quarterback at Cam Ward, but he was up and down at some times last season. Man, they're not ultra talented. I'm just going under. I mean, I'm going under.
Dude, I see 7 wins on this schedule,
I mean, but
but
it's so close though.
yeah, but man, they play Colorado late. Dude, that's going to be the game I think that can get them to 7. I think.
Yeah.
I I'm gonna go the over for them, and it's gonna be like 7-5, like this much,
Yeah.
like this much. I think they're gonna be okay. I mean, they're going to fight and claw to get to those 7 wins, but
Yeah.
I I don't know. I wouldn't sleep on them. Like you definitely need to be prepared when going in there to play Washington State. But you just kind of hit the nail on the head, Gus. But I'm gonna go over, but barely.
Yeah, so I'm going to sleep on Washington State. I'm going to take the under with them, and for a few different reasons. You talked about Cam Ward; he's really good. However, the O line and the receiving group is not good. So um, they do have a new OC, Ben Archibald. He takes the field in Pullman. So they gave up 46 sacks last year, and they lost their left tackle to transfer portal. He went to USC. So they lose their tackle. Their line was already bad, and they lost their top 4 receivers statistically last year.
Oh,
So
that
you've
hurt.
got brand new receivers. Offense, big question mark. Cam is good, but he's not good enough. He's not one of those guys that can put the team on his back type deal. So I worry with that offense. And then the defense suffered. They lost players at every position. So the linebacker group, Coach Stickert, he lost a guy in Henley who had 106 tackles last year. So that's going to be one that he's trying to find. They did get some transfers, but they also lost some guys to good schools. So I think some of their top tier talent kind of left. So
Yeah.
I worry about offense and defense with them. I would take the under. They're like Gus spoke. They're probably like a 6-6 maybe. Just too many questions for me for them, man.
So you were saying 7 games. Well, so let's say at Colorado State, Northern Colorado, Dubs. And I mean, then you got the Wisconsin game. That's going to be a tough game. And then you got
I
the
don't see him
Oregon
beating
State
Wisconsin.
game. I mean, they maybe could beat
Ah,
Oregon State. They maybe could beat them.
I maybe yeah, I definitely didn't count that right. That is 6 wins max. That is an under. Please recant my statement. Where did I
When
get
you have
7 from?
OL
Oh,
problems and you're missing 4 wide receivers, it's going to be hard to
That's
score in this league.
that's just tough. And I mean, then they're at
oh,
UCLA,
never mind, never mind. There is possible for 7 wins. So you got at Colorado State, Northern Colorado,
Colorado.
Arizona, at Arizona State, Stanford, Cal, Colorado. Those are your
7.
chance for your 7.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to the 2 Arizona schools and then
Yeah, they're gonna
California.
have to go 2-0 in those games. I mean,
Yeah.
to get to 7. If you split those, you're gonna be at 6 and possibly 5 because
Mhm.
I mean, Colorado is probably gonna have more talent than them. So
Probably.
I mean, so
I mean,
you could. There's a chance. Obviously, those are the 7 games. I mean, these are all the bottom of the Pac-12 schools. But
and it's
yeah,
gonna be dirty and grimy at the bottom of
yeah,
the Pac-12, and it'll just kind of be who's left standing when the dust settles,
yeah,
man. And just one of the teams we were just talking about going down the road to the Cal Golden Bears. Over under for 2023 is 5.5. What do y'all think about Cal? It's a tough line. It's a
yeah.
really, really tough line for
This
Cal.
one was really tough for me to pick. Cody, go speak on Cal.
So with Cal, I'm going to take the over. I kind of believe in Cal just a hair. Schedule's a little bit tough for them. They got a new play caller in Jake Spavital. I think that's how you say his name.
Mhm.
They got 8 starters back on the offensive side, and they got the TCU transfer, Sam Jackson. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the quarterback for them. They lost to an offensive tackle to the portal, but they got one from Stanford that's better in Barrett Miller, in my opinion, and they also got one from Texas A&M in Matthew Wilkoff. So they got a wide receiver from Washington. I think they have enough talent offensively to be kind of sneaky. Defense can be better, I think. Justin Wilcox is over there. They allow 5.3 in 21, and then last fall it went to 5.83. So I'm kind of curious, how it goes. But he's got 10 guys coming back, so he lost a safety and a linebacker technically. But they got a corner from Mizzou that's coming in. He's pretty good, and they also got a corner from San Diego State and Patrick Morrison. He's all right. So I think just the experience alone for both offense and the defense will be enough to get enough for them. It'll be a team that they're going to sneak somebody.
I think they're going under because they play a brutal schedule.
That's what I was about to say. Their schedule does
God.
them no favors.
Man, I'm
Dear
going under.
Lord.
Barely under, though. They're going to have like 5 wins. But, Cody, you are right. They might sneak somebody and get that 6th win.
I mean,
but I'm going under at 5 wins.
This was one of the toughest lines just because just like you were just saying, Cody, they bring in so much talent from the portal. They had one of the sneaky good portal classes from this last cycle. I mean, this schedule, I would not wish this schedule on anybody because they get Auburn in the non-con, then they get Washington, they get Oregon State, they get Utah, they get USC, Oregon, and UCLA. Just look at that 5-week schedule where
they could lose 5 in a row.
Dude, yes. I mean, just absolute slobber knocker of a schedule. I mean, just awful. Absolutely terrible. So I'm going that the schedule reigns supreme here and the schedule makes them go under, but they could very easily go over too. Man, and now we're kind of getting into the bottom tier of the Pac-12, really getting in the weeds here, breaking down Arizona State Sun Devils. New coach Kenny Dillingham was the offensive coordinator of Oregon last season, takes the head coaching job at Arizona State. They fired Herm Edwards after an abysmal season, fired him on the field essentially with a lot of poor performances and kind of the recruiting scandals that were going on. It's just not a good situation at Arizona State. They bring in Drew Pine, quarterback from Notre Dame. They sign, Jaden Rashada. Almost went away from me there. I mean, I'm going under just because they have a tough schedule with the non-con with Oklahoma State and Fresno. I mean, it's just going to take a while for them to flip this roster and flip this culture. I think that Kenny Dillingham, the prodigal son coming back home to Arizona State, could eventually get it done, but not this season. I'm going under 4.5 for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, I'm going under as well. Just not enough talent there right now. They kind of got a dumpster fire there. They need all the fire extinguishers they can get to get that thing restarted and get it going again. Schedule's just a little too tough for me to even try to get 5 wins. I don't see it. So I'm going under.
I'm going under just because what Jaden Rashada did to my team. But I'm just kidding.
Screw you, Jade.
Yeah, I think Kenny Dillingham can recruit well. I'm not sure X's and O's guys how he'll do at head coaching. I mean, obviously he was a good OC. Yeah. They got 5 back on the offense. You mentioned Drew Pine and Jaden Rashada. So who's going to be the dude? We don't know. But either way, they're still missing guys up front, and they're missing a good running back. And the defense was terrible, man. They allowed like almost 35 when they played Pac-12 last year. So I don't see enough to point to them to make me believe that they can get 5 or 6. I would definitely go under Arizona State.
Staying in state, the Wildcats, man, I really kind of like what Jedd Fish is doing at Arizona. I drafted Jaden Delora in my quarterback draft. The over-under's 4.5. Where do y'all land?
Let me see. Oh, I'm over, barely.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna be over. I like Jaden Delora a lot. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think they're getting better. I like their head coach and Jedd Fish. Um, so I'm gonna hit the over because I think Arizona is getting better, and I think they're a little sneaky team that you kind of don't want to sleep on.
I'm going to take the over. I do worry with their defense. Let me talk on offense first. So, most people don't know this, but they led the Pac-12 in yards per play last year in 7.3. So, a lot of people don't realize that. They got 8 guys coming back. You talked about Delora. He's really good. They got 2 really good receivers coming back for them. They lost Singer to USC, of course, and 2 starters up front. But I think they have enough offensively. I just worry with their defense, kind of how they're going to do, just like the rest of the Pac-12. I mean, but they were really terrible against the run last year. They allowed 6.6 and gave up nearly 37 a game, and they only have 3 guys coming back. So
Yeah.
that Johnny Nance and the DC over there is probably pulling his hair out. So I'll take I'll take that defense to be pretty bad, but I'll go over just slightly.
Just slightly. And I mean, they have some winnable games to get to the over. And kind of like you were saying, Will, they're a sneaky team. I think this is the team that will sneak 1, maybe 2 teams that they're really not supposed to be able to maybe reach their ceiling and maybe get a bowl out of this season. Man, this next team and one of our last teams is probably the most talked about team in the Pac-12. Yeah, the most anticipated team, the Colorado Buffaloes, with Deion Sanders coming in there first year, flipping the roster over under 3.5. Schedule, one word, gauntlet. Absolute brutal. Yeah. They could start 0-5. I truly believe they could start 0-5. But man, it's super, super tough. They just flipped so much, and that's just too much to overturn in 1 year. And I mean, them winning 3 games would be a successful season from what has been Colorado in the past. So I'm going under just off of principle. You aren't supposed to be able to flip a roster like this and hit the over. So I'm going under because of the roster and the schedule.
Well, dude, they only got 12 players from last year returning. So this is a complete flip. It's going to be a totally new team. It'll be interesting to see Sanders as he plays quarterback. This isn't the SWAC anymore. This is the Pac-12. I know the defenses aren't tough, but they are better than where you were playing. This one is tough, man, because I do think they brought in some talent. They brought in a really good defense coordinator in Charles Kelly. He was a former defense coordinator at Florida State. He's been at Bama for a while as a safeties coach. They will play aggressive on defense. They will man up, and they will bring the house. And they got some DBs that can cover you. Two guys out wide, 2 of the best. Travis Hunter, they got a freshman. Everybody thought the Gators were going to get him. Cody, tell me his name. I forgot it because I wanted to black him out.
Poor Monty McClain.
Yeah, I don't even want to know his name, to be honest with you.
Well, just kind of putting this out there, he wanted to come back and we pushed away at the end. So he kind of seems like a turd. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they didn't want him anymore. I'm going to be playing an up-tempo offense. I think that's something that can help them a little bit. What's going to be interesting to me about this team, I know we're kind of talking about wins and stuff, but how they're going to use Travis Hunter. They want to use him at all 3 phases of the game.
They will
But
100% be using him at all 3 phases of the game. He's
but
too
like
good.
it,
He's way too good to keep off the field, and especially
in
with the talent that's on that roster, they're gonna have to.
but in some of these games at like USC, Utah,
Oregon.
Oregon, like, are you going to use him to like that much if they're like beating you by 3 touchdowns, or would you rather save his legs for games that you're going to be in? Colorado State, Arizona State, Stanford, uh, Arizona. Like, are they going to help save his legs for those games? I think this team's going to be a little better than everybody thinks. But I'm going to go the under with 3 wins, but really close to getting 4. I do think they're close to getting 4, but it's going to be 3 wins.
So I'll try not to take too much time on them, but I do find this team extremely interesting. Obviously, Deion goes over there, so everybody's looking at him. But biggest thing for me is, well, one to know is Deion's playing with house money, dude. They won 1 game last year, so if he wins
Yeah.
3 games, they already think he's
Oh,
the
yeah.
greatest thing ever, right? This is the hardest line in the Pac-12 for me because you talked about how new this team is. We have no idea what they're going to look like. I think for me personally, it's hard to determine how all of these personalities are going to clash because he's getting so many kids that were buried on the depth chart or guys that, other teams didn't want that maybe had talent. Are they going to, kind of walk the line like Deion wants? How's his son going to play? Is he going to, kind of do certain things with him differently? Is Sean Lewis calling the plays? Do we know that? There's a lot of freaking question marks with them. And then last year, if you look at the defense, we don't know what they're going to have, but they gave up 45 last year, dude. So it's they gave up 45.1. They gave up 45.1 in Pac-12. Yeah, so I get that it's a brand new team, and I'm not saying they're going to give up 45. I just think, you mentioned all the new people. Can they mesh, man? Can those Money McLeans, can they figure it out quickly? I want to go over with them, though, just because,
And when things ain't going well, kids like that do not handle situations that have been winning their whole life in high school. They don't handle situations like that very well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and I just wonder how that's going to affect his stuff.
How is he going to deal with the personalities like that? Because,
mean,
dude, the whole offseason they've been preaching they're going to win. They're going to win.
Yeah.
And I get, like, you can, preach them how you're going to win. And then when things aren't going the way you think they should, and you're 1-4, what are you going to do to get the troops up?
And like I said, man, yes, this isn't the biggest job in America for Deion Sanders, but you are facing some really talented teams, man. And I think when you put it all together, like any Florida State fan that you talk to, obviously they're going to say, "Oh, well, those guys suck. That's why they went over there." And yeah, some of those were buried, but to have that many guys, man, to try to say, "Okay, let's just flip a switch," it's going to be tough.
I think they're the most interesting team in the Pac-12.
They're going to be fun to watch.
For sure. And last but not least, the poor Stanford Cardinals could maybe be the worst team in Power 5 football this year. Over
I'm
under.
going to go ahead and say mine. Under, they're terrible. There you go. I'm done.
Over under, they're terrible. 2.5. I mean, they beat Notre Dame last year. They beat Notre Dame last year. Dude,
I don't care.
2.5.
They would have played Notre Dame again. Notre Dame would have killed them.
I mean, they must beat Hawaii. They must beat Sacramento State, and I think they'll upset one person just because it's the Pac-12 and it's going to be a madhouse of a conference. I mean, there ain't no skill, and I mean that they could beat Colorado, that they could beat Cal, they could beat Arizona.
I think it'd either be Colorado or Washington State. That would be the two.
Yeah,
I would look at them beating.
I mean, but I think Troy Taylor coming in from Sacramento State, I think he'll bring a kind of new energy to the program, a real upbeat guy with a real upbeat offense. And I think he'll kind of like breathe a little breath of new life into the Cardinals. So give me the over 2.5. I would not bet a penny on it, but give me the over with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over too, Gus.
Let's go.
I wouldn't bet on it either, but you get a new
Yeah.
coach in there, like you talked about, Troy Taylor. How is he going to kind of reamp them and get them motivated? They lost a quarterback to the NFL, Tanner McKee. They got a good running back. I mean, EJ Smith isn't bad. They got a decent tight end. They have a few weapons. This is another one of those. It's like, how bad is the defense going to be though? Because last year in the Pac-12, man, Pac-12 games they gave up 36.3. So how can Bobby April, fix that for them? It's going to be hectic. But I'm with you, Gus. I think just the new life because it's been so long since they've had a new coach. I think maybe you find a way to motivate them guys and slip up on somebody and then beat a couple teams that you're supposed to. So just barely, I'm gonna take the over.
It ain't gonna be no couple teams.
I mean,
I will say I think Virginia's worse than them though.
yeah.
There's
yeah.
only 2 teams on their schedule besides those 2 other non-conference that I
Could
think have
win.
a chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
All you gotta do is split them.
Split them, and you just have to hit 3. You just got to get 3 wins.
Yeah.
Hawaii upsets them. That'd be funny.
Oh, then there ain't no shot they're going over 2.5 then. I mean, that's why I said
Hawaii's gonna be terrible, dude.
that's why I
That's
said
gonna be like a terrible matchup.
That game's gonna be played like on the History Channel.
well, it says CBS Sports Network that might have about 10 people watching it.
The coaching staff's wives.
and then half of them will be asleep watching it because it's an 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff. That's going to end at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But man, I love talking football with y'all. I'm excited to watch the Pac-12 this season, kind of like we have already spoke on. Man, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. And kind of like I said at the start of the show, subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can catch us on TikTok, Instagram, share the feed on Facebook so we can kind of grow and we can get this ball rolling. Guys, I've had a great night. Any last words before we sign off?
Nah, man, we're getting closer. Media days are next week.
Oh, yeah.
Camp opens up July 31st for a lot of teams. Man, we are so close. A little 2 months now, so it'll be here before we know it.
I think it's about 40, almost below 40 days until week 0. So, I mean,
be 6 weeks to week 0 this Saturday. I think it is. So
I love the sound of that. Cody, any last words?
Yeah, man, I just want to say I appreciate it. And it's always fun breaking this stuff down and looking forward to we got some good ones coming up next. So
some good ones. And I heard it through the grapevine that we might be going 2 nights a week because there's so much to break down and so little time to do it. So you can always catch us live on Facebook and YouTube. We are the College Football Experience. This is the College Football Experience. Thank y'all for tuning in and have a good night. Peace.